Hi everyone, welcome. I'm Natalie Swachina, the Associate Deputy Director here at the Houston Center for Contemporary Craft. Thank you for coming this Saturday afternoon and braving our cold Arctic temperatures inside. So if you can't have fall weather outside, the Craft Center will at least try to provide you some fall weather inside. This is our second Craft Perspectives. Craft Perspectives is a program that's where artists can share works in development, share new materials and processes, and have a chance to interact with each other and really think about our ideas and concepts and connect with each other. So today we have 5 artists that have all signed up. We're really excited, and we actually had more artists sign up than spots, so we'll be hopefully holding a third one later this year for more artists to join. So each participant will have 5 minutes to present their works. Then we'll have 5 minutes for questions following each presentation. Everyone has a PowerPoint and some have physical objects, so we're super excited to learn more about techniques and processes today. So starting us off is Mary Forbes, a fiber artist. And I'm gonna take it over to Mary, give it over to Mary.
Hi, I'm Mary Forbes. I create realistic portraits out of thread. So currently I am working on pet portraits. I've also done people portraits. Embroidery thread works really well with furry pets because the thread is already kind of fuzzy. So the texture and everything just really works for pets. So I'm going to tell you how to make these. You know, it seems so easy that I'm surprised that not everyone is doing it, but there is a tediousness to it that probably has distracted a lot of people. So what you first would do is find your subject matter. You're going to size your image to fit your canvas. So, you know, using whatever software program you have available, size your image to fit your canvas. So let's say this is your canvas. I would advise you to work small because there's a lot of stitches involved in something like this. So if this is your canvas, what you need to be careful of is that when you size your image, you don't try to use this whole canvas because you will be limited by these stretcher bars. Your needle, you can only use the part of the canvas where your needle can go through. So just this center part when you're sizing. So you're going to size your image. Then you're going to print the image on a piece of paper. And you don't have to use color. You can just print black and white. Ideally, if you remove the background, you know, so this dog was actually in someone's living room and there was like a TV behind it and everything. But for a cleaner transfer, I removed all that background. So you're going to print your image and you're going to take your canvas. If you have like a book or I've been using these little blocks to put as support underneath the canvas here so that when you use your transfer paper, you've got your print, you put your transfer paper down, you put your print on here, and you do an outline of the subject matter. So you end up with, you know, if it's a black canvas and white transfer paper, you've got a white outline. And you're just taking like the main details, you know, like where's the ear, where's the eye? You know, you're not trying to get super granular on your details. Then you are ready to stitch your image. Go to my next slide here. It's easy if you have your image up on a screen where you can zoom in and get all those little details, you know, like if you're going to work on the eye, you can zoom in on his eye on your computer or your phone or whatever you're using and get all the little details that you want to, because look how many different colors there are in his eye. You can't get that when you're transferring the image. With your thread, you know, embroidery thread has 6, you know, it looks like one thread, but there's actually 6 separate little threads here. You can't use all 6 to go through the canvas. You'll have big, huge holes, and it won't look as nice as if you separate these. I usually use like 2, sometimes 3 threads, 2 or 3 threads. So you'll thread your needle when you buy your thread, you're going to want to get multiple shades of each color, so it looks like, he's just got white fur and brown fur and dark colors, but there's several different shades of the brown and the white and even the black. So when you buy your colors, you'll want to get a bunch of different shades of each color so that you're all set to do your different shades of the pet or whatever you're working on. So each stitch is going to be like a brush stroke, but smaller and requiring much more work than a brush stroke. So this is where the kind of meditation or Zen-like time mindset comes in, because it's going to take a long time to get all these stitches and get your image complete. While you're working, kind of try to pay attention to the transitions and the direction that the fur is going. When you zoom in, obviously for his fur, the fur is going downwards here. So I've got my stitches going downwards. And here is where there's a transition where, to show his face is going back. I've got stitches going this way, and then I'm transitioning and having them meet up in this area. So trying to kind of watch those transitions as you go. And you'll have plenty of time to think about your transitions as you make each stitch. So let's see, my next slide. Even if you have the best eyesight in the world, you're going to want to save time by using a needle threader. I'm calling them roll knots. I don't know what the real name is, but when you take your thread and instead of tying a knot at the end of each needle threading, you can roll it in your fingers like this. I'm sure y'all know how to do that, and then it'll make a knot. You probably can't see that, but that would be a suggestion. Also, to save time, you don't have to knot, your last stitch when you're running out of thread and you're on the last stitch. You don't need to knot it on the back because it's probably going to be covered up with more stitches. So I usually leave maybe like an inch of the thread hanging out and just kind of tuck it under and keep going. And you will be inclined to save time and make a really long thread if you have a big section of one color to do. But if you do that, you'll get all kinds of knots, and it will take you even longer to undo all that. So I wouldn't recommend it. Another tip would be, as you poke holes in the canvas, you're going to have little tiny dots of the canvas that, are poked out as you go, and you're going to kind of have to constantly keep kind of brushing those off to keep your image clean. You don't want to sew those into the next section, so I would recommend that. Okay, that's actually all I had. So. Thank
you. Does anyone have any questions for Mary? I love all the useful tips. That's really helpful.
Thank you. Thank you.
I want to know what kind of embroidery brands you use, because when you look at the tongue, it's so cool. You can see like a shine. I don't know. It looks like it's moist. It's very realistic.
It's where you use the multiple colors. So there are way more colors. There's a dark red and a black and a light red. So it's watching the colors. And that's how you get the depth. Like on his nose, you can see where his nostrils are. Well, that's actually gray, a gray thread. And then, so just, having multiple shades ready to go when you get to that point. How about you?
So, I'm a sculpture student at UH. I'm currently in a fibers class, and we did embroidery earlier this semester. I had the problem of making the giant holes in my canvas. So if you're needing to make these really close pokes, like a little cluster, is the trick at that point just to try to move over like a few threads of the canvas, or like?
Yes. And staying with, you know, the not using like the whole 6 strands. So yeah, you're when you get a hole like that, you just kind of have to go around it the best you can.
Yeah, I'm very heavy-handed with a lot of my work. I scrape stuff off of, you know, the pottery wheel and all that stuff from like pushing too hard. Thankfully, we were only using a couple of strands, but I'm just like someone to force it. So you're gonna do what I want you to do. So I have to try to kind of more collaborate with my material a little bit more. I did also want to ask, like, how did you find yourself doing this? Like, what was your kind of entryway into the embroidery portraiture?
Well, I tried painting, and in my head I had this idea of how my paintings should turn out, and they never turned out like that. And it was so frustrating. So finally I just took one of my paintings, and I'm like, I wonder what would happen if I went over it in thread. Maybe that would save this painting. I won't have to throw it in the trash. And that's how it started. I went over it in a painting in thread, and I really loved how it looked. And I'm like, this is what I should be doing. So thank you for asking.
I noticed a lot with your imagery, you're using fiber in a way that is very linear, almost like it could be like printmaking or etching, like the way that you're using line quality to create volume in the different surfaces. So like, have you ever tried other processes? I know you just talked about painting, but like, have you seen that skill sets sort of translate to different materials, or have you found different skill sets came into this, or?
You know, I would say some painting skill sets, you know, using shading to depict three-dimensionality. But I haven't tried printing or anything else.
I think you could do etching really well.
Okay, I'll have to try it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
All right, thank you.
Awesome. That was really, I loved all your very practical tips and techniques, so that is great. Sorry, that last one. Okay. Next up is Rachelle LeBlanc as a clay artist. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. First, I want to thank the Houston Center for Contemporary Craft for inviting me to talk to everybody today. My name is Rachelle LeBlanc, and my practice merges traditional and digital weaving techniques with experimental mark making and sculptural processes. These methods allow me to build surfaces that feel fragile and enduring, spaces where representation and abstraction coexist, and where time accumulates through layers of pigment and textures. For this work-in-progress talk, I want to share the conceptual shift that drove me from the structured sculpture made in fiber to the freedom of clay, a shift that fundamentally changed how I explore themes of belonging, identity, and transformation. For several years, my practice focused on textile and fiber art, using traditional rug hooking techniques. I made tapestries and sculptures of children, one loop at a time, using a latch hook and strips of hand-dyed fabric. The demanding nature of the work severely restricted my output, and the dense surface made delicate details challenging when working in 3D forms. So here you can see, is it okay if I flip this? This is the underside that you see here. So you can see how dense each stitch or each loop creates on the inside. And when I turned over for the sculpture, it really changed the line of the eyes and stuff like that. So sometimes I had to kind of place things where they were meant to be. So it was really hard to get an emotional kind of look to my sculptures. 2 years ago, I started working with clay. Clay gives me not only the freedom to create dynamic movement and subtle gestures, but also the ability to capture the fragile human moments in an instant through the tilt of the head, a subtle change in body position, and the application of layers of underglaze. Their inspiration draws on classical art history with poses that suggest longing, strength, and introspective, guiding the viewer's emotional encounter with the work. So here you can see the coil built. Everything. So this sculpture here is about this tall. The figure is slowly built using coils. Before bisque firing, I apply a thin layer, you can see on the body, a thin layer of underglaze. And once it is bisque fired, I add underglaze to create watercolor painted effects. Sometimes it goes through a second bisque or a third bisque firing in order to get the surface that I'd like. So this is an image of me adding all the layers of underglaze. The sculpture in the back you can see is already fired. So there's a very different look before and after it's fired. And this is what it looks like. So it's a very different emotional capture on the pieces with the clay compared to the textile. While the conceptual shift to clay offered me the immediate freedom of movement and unfiltered emotion, I haven't entirely abandoned the textile roots. Instead, now I'm exploring how to merge the two media. In the most recent work, The Three Graces and Eve Ascending, I'm utilizing textile in a completely different way. I'm combining and integrating them with the clay form itself. The dissolved, fragmented fabric and the digitally woven collage now no longer dictate the figure's rigid structure, but instead serves as a literal trace of the past, the origin of point or the ground from which the figures emerge. This fusion allows the final piece to embody both the clay's vulnerability and the historical embedded in the fiber, creating a richer, more layered dialogue. In this way, the making becomes not just a craft, but an act of witnessing and honoring the complexities of being and the pursuit of belonging in an ever-changing world. And I have a question for you. I'd like to explore every avenue of the synthesis of the fiber and the clay together. So beyond the embedding I've already tried, what technical approaches or processes do you think would most powerfully unite the two materials? So going forward, I'd like to have a clay sculpture and maybe integrate the textile by wrapping it or maybe printing into the clay. If anybody has any ideas, I would love to hear it. Yes?
I've seen people poke holes in a grid on the ceramics and then weave through it. Lena, who speaks shortly, has done a weaving with holes both at the top and the bottom with ceramic. And
Yeah.
Yeah, like a loom, sorry, is the word I was looking for. So
Right.
something like that would be interesting where it's actually running through the ceramics.
That's really interesting because you could add like the embroider or even weave.
Yeah, yes.
That's really cool. Thank you. Yes?
You could also think about adding some sort of armature, like building a clay armature around the sculptures that you're already creating. And that could be an additional loom sort of structure that you can work through.
Right.
So instead of it being like separate in the environment next to the ceramic, visually it's integrated. I think like the visual language of the color and everything like unifies it. But if you build like that structure into the sculpture itself, then you could maybe play around with that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's a great idea. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any more questions? No?
Any other questions for Rachelle?
You?
More of a comment for me. I find your color stories to be incredibly interesting. You maintain a sort of vibrancy in certain hues, but then it's very grounded with these deeper, kind of muted blue-green tones. I love the flourishes of like pink and qualities, and it's quite something, honestly.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I've studied color and the energy a color kind of radiates. And if I was to go like everything bright, I need calm. So it would it would make me nervous, it would make me anxious. So I try and balance the calmer colors with a little hints of bright just to have like that balance. So thank you.
My question is, is the size of your kiln dictating how you're piecing the bodies together, or is that an aesthetic choice?
Yes, that's a great question. My kiln, I think I can fire up to 26 inches. So these sculptures are quite tall. So some of them are in 3 pieces, some of them are in 4 pieces. Sometimes the line is strategic and sometimes I just can't hide it. And they're not permanently glued together. Otherwise, it would be really difficult to transport them. So once if they're sold, I then permanently glue them together with epoxies. So that way there's no accidents and stuff. But for the firing, definitely.
Do you display them? How do they not break when you're displaying them like in a gallery setting? Do you attach them somehow?
Yes, as I build them, I make sure it's balanced. And there's often a steel rod that goes through. I think I have to find a better way to do that because just a thin steel rod, sometimes I don't think it's going to be strong enough. These pieces you can see right now at the Glassell School of Art. They're on the first floor of the block program exhibition. Just don't push them.
No one should be touching the art.
No touching.
Awesome.
Thank
Any
you.
more questions? Thank you, Rachelle.
Thank
Thank you. I need to change the presentation. Sorry. I'm done on my job. Good. Awesome. Good. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Well, our next presenter is Delaney Moore-McNamee. I think I said that right. Awesome. Who is showing us some metal techniques. Yes. Awesome. And if you want to start over here to the mic.
Yes, of course. Awesome. Okay, hi everybody. My name is Delaney, more commonly known as Laney. I just first want to say thank y'all for everyone coming, listening to us artists. I feel like I'm about to nerd out a little bit, so it's just really nice and validating to have y'all come listen. Today I'm going to be talking about my experiments in copper, specifically techniques in patina as well as resist patina. Ooh. The arrow button. There we go. Okay. What is patina? So patina is a protective layer that can form on the surface of a lot of different metals, but also woods and other materials too. It can occur naturally due to exposure from the environment as well as wear and weathering over time. A lot of artists will also intentionally patina things like wood and metal to get specific effects. I'm specifically really interested in copper. I think that as a metal, copper is really dynamic in the way that it can patina through chemical and heat. You can see up here, this is one of the very first test pieces I ever did a patina on with copper. And it's a heat patina, so what I did was go with like a huge propane torch over a piece of copper flashing, which is like roofing material. And you get these really vibrant oranges and reds, even purples, blues. So I just think, yeah, it yields a really beautiful effect with heat. And then down here, this is a chemical patina called verdigris. That's like kind of famous. If y'all know, like the Statue of Liberty is green, right? Because it's made out of copper. So that's the same idea. But I spelled patina there with a technique called resist, which I'll talk about a little bit more now. So this is resist patina. Something that's really big to me in my practice is kind of experimenting with non-traditional materials when it comes to patinating and also resisting patina. So these two test pieces over here, I call them test tiles, are different methods of resisting patina. The first one is a chemical patina, a mixture of liver of sulfur and then white vinegar and salt as well to get that bluish, greenish, dark color. And the resist I used to mask the surface of that one was Sally Hansen Miracle Gel Clear Nail Polish Top Coat. And then this one here is a heat patina. I did that on my stovetop at home. I have a gas stove. And I used ceramic slip actually to resist the heat. My assumption, I'm not a chemist, y'all, but I think slip, right, it maintains heat. It protects the copper from the heat. So you can see there's like a big wash where I put the slip here. Then these are the more heat patinated parts. And then I embossed the word slip, burnt some slip on top, and sanded it away for legibility purposes. And a bunch of little test tiles like that are coming together in a piece that's just been running on in the background of my practice. I call it the copper wallpaper. And it's just like an amalgamation of all my different test tiles, just testing experimental methods of heat patina, chemical patina, and then funny ways of masking the surface too. So you can see down here I listed house paint, lipstick, permanent marker, borax, and just other random common household objects on copper flashing. All right, and then recently I've been a lot more into the experimental methods of actually applying patinas to copper. So I have like a couple show and tell pieces that I'll pass around now. Here, I'll start y'all on this side. And then let's start, y'all. I'm just gonna do a couple of the bangles. There's 14. There you are. And so what I'm doing here is really just using time and kind of just intuition to patina the copper. Again, I'm not a chemist, so I'm not necessarily always 100% sure what will happen when I put copper underground. But I really like to just see what happens, you know, even if I'm not super informed on the chemical structure of what's happening underground. So I'm passing around a piece on this side that's a copper tile. I left it underground for about 7 days. This is the before image, and then y'all, of course, will see the after. And then on this side, you've got a couple of my copper bangles. That one was sort of like a performance-based piece, so I made 14 copper bangles from scrap tubing, and then I wore them for 14 days straight. And they served almost like jade bangles, if y'all know what those are. They fit pretty snug. They're not really meant to come off. So for 14 days, you can see it turned my arm green, just from like the salt from the sweat in my skin, and like the acidity from the rain in the environment. Perfume that I wear, all of that stuff. And I think it's kind of interesting to think of it as a personal memento in a way, it patinating me and then me patinating it back. So yeah. And then what's next for me? Right now I'm really interested, I'm a sculpture student at U of H. I don't know if I mentioned that. So I'm really interested in kind of the 3D form and taking some of these flatter pieces and making them take up more space. Like, I recently have been practicing a lot of soldering. It's a newer skill for me, but to kind of take flat pieces and put them together to make more three-dimensional structures. And then I recently got a research fund that I'm hoping to put towards lost wax casting in copper. So going for a lot of copper casting grain and using that to cast 3D materials, and then hopefully applying the kind of weird experimental techniques like wearing and burying underground and applying nail polish to create these really wacky, weird, interesting patinas. So with that, I have a couple more pieces up here. This flower one is here. I'm not going to pass it around just as it's kind of awkward to hold, but I don't know, maybe at the end, come up, look at it. I don't know. But that's just about it. Thank y'all so much. I'll do a little bow.
Any questions?
Oh.
Any questions for Delaney or Laney?
Is there a product that you can put on the copper that will stop it from oxidizing on your skin?
So I would say, I mean, I haven't tested it. Kind of the intention with that project was to turn my skin green. But I would say probably like just a clear sealant. I'm guessing like, you know they sell the spray clear sealant, something like that probably. And it was pretty tough. Like I had to, it was a couple days before they started to turn my skin green. So I know that's normally the opposite effect people want from their jewelry, but. Question?
When it comes to working on the different materials to test the patinas, have you explored, I feel like something that reacts really well is like salts, right?
Yeah.
And then also probably like some types of acid.
Yeah.
Like what has been like the most surprising thing that you found that like worked, either as resist or as something to patina or change the color?
A flea spray at my house. So like, I had the fleas get really bad at my house one time, and I was just like, kind of obsessing over the flea problem. So I sprayed it on some copper, and I guess it was really, I think anything with fumes does a lot. You know, if it smells crazy, it'll do something crazy. So, yeah, that one was fun.
What made you choose copper out of all the metals to work with?
So copper, I think for me, is just, it produces a lot of different colors and textures too. I think that's really the most interesting thing to me. I'm really into all different kinds of metalworking, but with the copper, especially when you heat it up, you get so many different colors. Like, my favorite is the magenta. You can get a really vibrant magenta from the copper that I think is just really beautiful.
Where do you source your copper from?
So I use a lot of scrap material, and I have a little bit of flashing too that I purchased like from Texas Art Asylum or creative reuse stores. But like I said, yeah, I've got a research fund now, so the goal there is to kind of just use that to purchase casting grain and then cast that.
Have you heard of copper clay?
Copper clay. I've heard of silver clay. Is it the same concept?
Yes.
That's so neat. You know, I definitely want to look into it. Silver clay, too, has always been something that really fascinates me. I love ceramics, too, so I think that's a very intuitive way of sculpting for me. Definitely have to look into it. That sounds awesome.
I do want to add a footnote to your answer to Connor's question, because I was spending time with Lainey during the time she was doing this copper thing, and she was looking on the side of the road, like on the streets. I mean, everywhere she found something that was copper, she'd test it and work with it. So I think she was really resourceful in a way that I admire. So I wanted to point that out.
Thanks. All good?
Well, thank you, Lainey.
Thank you so much. Should I come collect?
Oh, yeah.
I'll put them up.
Okay, thank you so much, Lainey. I have to go look at everything later, too, myself. Next up is Angel Oloshove talking about clay.
Thank you.
Hi everybody. It's good to see so many like familiar faces. I got like different people from all these different clay communities and educational communities, and also all these new faces too. So thanks y'all for coming out. My talk is a little strange. So if you've never seen my work before, this is what it looks like. I make hand-built ceramic sculptures that look sort of like amorphous blobs or like dreamlike forms. And the thing that people recognize in my work is also this soft kind of aura of color around the surface. So I have another piece here, this kind of stuff. This piece is at IAH right now at the airport, so maybe you see it when you travel. So I've been working in clay professionally for 16 years now, and so I'm at this point where I'm like getting interested in like other things, like what concepts am I trying to explore, and pushing how I'm making things. So inspiration strikes in very strange ways, and this is the recent one. Okay, so anybody familiar with Luce? Yes. Okay, there we go. So this year, the Catholic Church commissioned an artist, Tokidoki, to create a mascot called Luce. She is a pilgrim. This is her whole crew. See here, and it's a way of like bringing tourism and like brand awareness to the Catholic Church for the youths, obviously. And I just, when I saw this, I was like, whoa, okay, the Catholics are really trying to, modernize like their outreach to the young people. So a thing about the collaborator, Tokidoki, this guy. This, if you've ever seen this kind of packaging, is very popular in the mid-2000s to like 2012 kind of Tumblr era thing. This guy is not Japanese, he's Italian, okay? So you'll see some very questionable kind of like representations of Asian-esque women. Are they Japanese? Are they not? Who knows? But he makes all these characters. So probably you've seen some of this on packaging. Like He has a line of makeup at Sephora with these characters. He was very popular in that era of like late 2000s, like blog, the beginning of the internet kind of thing. This is him, Simone Legno, with the Hilton sisters, Paris and Nikki, respectively. And you can kind of see the start of the character here that eventually turns into Luce, right? So when I'm thinking about, I see this character and I'm thinking about the Tokidoki guy, and I'm like, what is this? Like, why is the Catholic Church doing this? So we're going to see here, look at this guy. So to put it in context, this is what's going on. Is like they're making these figurines, they're making merch, things to like bring more interest back to the Catholic Church. I think in like the recent week, you know, the Catholic bishops of America have come out to speak out against Trump's immigration plan. So the Catholics are sort of like on the come up again, possibly politically. But I'm really interested in this idea of like pop spiritualism, where it's like, okay, why is there like a pseudo anime character like representing like Italian, like Roman Catholics, right? Why is this interesting to me? This is me. I've worked in toy design for 18 years in Japan. So the top left picture is me at like 22. I started making soft toys. This is at a workshop in Tokyo. I started making soft plush toys in college, and then I transitioned to like moving to Japan and working on a design team, designing dolls. And so here you'll see some of the event. Eventually I went from the design team to more of the international exhibition and artwork side of it. So I brought this exhibition to Hong Kong. I did exhibitions all over Asia, Hong Kong, Singapore, Bangkok. We took it to Paris, we took it to Australia, all over the place. This is a young me. These are girls that are dressed up like the dolls that we take around. So when it comes to toy design of like the 2000s, I'm in it. Like this is something I've been doing for a long time. The other thing is I'm a lapsed Catholic, so I can talk about these things. These are my core interests. I'm not so Catholic anymore, but it's just like, you know, it's part, what is it, cradle Catholic. It's in your bones. So when I'm thinking about, like, why would you choose a pilgrim as the symbol? I was like, that's kind of, we have so many better symbols that are like strange and interesting. So I was like, they should have chose like the biblically accurate angel. That is the most visually dynamic, like Catholic thing I can think of. So what you see on the left here is a print from the late 1800s depicting biblically accurate angels. So you see the rings, those are actually supposed to be representations of the angels. Here is a fresco in the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul of seraphim, which is a type of angel. So there's tons of different types of angels, and they're supposed to be structured in different ways. So here we have something from Isaiah. Above him stood the seraphim. Each had 6 wings. With 2 he covered his face, and with 2 he covered his feet. And with 2 he flew. Okay? This sort of imaginary spiritual creature just like is most interesting to me. Also, I think because my name's Angel, I don't know, there could be a connection. And so it's like, I want to create something like that. So here we have more. This is a medieval print of the seraphim. You can see more interlocking wings, but you actually can see the face of these. And then this is like a contemporary one. It's like, be not afraid, guys. He's a fine guy. So then I was like, that's what we need. We need this character, biblically accurate angel. And so my idea is to kind of pull from this pool of like traditional old Catholicism and make it a little bit more contemporary in terms of the structure. So I was like, I'm going to go crazy and put like googly eyes all over the angel instead of like terrifying eyes. And eventually I sort of edited that out. But I kept the structure. So you'll see like the layers of wings and the different layouts of the actual forms are based off of these old depictions of what the angels look like. So something like a cherubim, which traditionally in painting is described, is like a baby head with wings attached to the back of the head. It's described differently like in the actual writing of the Bible. So these are the things I've been researching, which eventually brought me to this. So it's like translating all of these symbols down into the sculptures that I actually have on this table here. So this is different than the things that I've done before. What I'm doing is using these panels, which you can see here. I will hold the sculpture up. So it's constructed out of individual panels, and instead of leaving the surface really smooth, which you see in my early work, I use my fingerprints as the pattern of the wings. So I'm actually going to pass this around. This is an example of how the wings are structured. And this is a great example of ceramics. Is like, okay, I spent 2 months making this thing and it broke in half. So this will give you an idea of what I'm trying to work with here. It's a lot of the mirroring and layering. So I just think it's an interesting way to like translate like something art historically into contemporary ceramics. These are also built with these patterns. So again, being a toy designer, I was also making like scale doll clothes, like to the scale of the doll. So I'd have to draft clothing patterns. We'd send that to China and to our factory, and they'd manufacture them. So I'm also like a pattern maker on top of this, and that's where like all of these forms kind of come from. So it's rooted in this thing. I don't know where I put the clicker. Okay, it's right here. I'm always like losing my phone and losing everything.
We have about 1 minute left.
But that's the end of it. That's what I'm working on, and I just want to hear like do you have any questions? This has been like my private like obsession, and people are not getting it. So I'm like, is there something? I just need some feedback. This is my Instagram if you want to see more of my work.
Thank you, Angel.
Yeah.
Are you planning on putting googly eyes on the finish? Like, would you put them on this, or was that just a joke?
It was originally like, that's such an audacious idea. I kind of want to do it, but now I edited it out. Yeah.
Would you ever consider making the like googly eyes like your own? Like maybe like trying.
Maybe I should. Like ceramic googly eyes.
Or I don't know, or maybe like something else. Like, because you do a lot of ceramic. Maybe you make like something different. I don't know.
That's true. I could. Or like what are those lenicular like stickers where the eye like blinks or something? Maybe. I have been thinking about like you can. There's this service that you can 3D model the forms, and so I really did want to make that biblically accurate angel like a toy, like a vinyl toy that has like eyes and stuff on it, because you can 3D print them, and then I could cast them and stuff. Exactly. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about right now. Yeah.
There were other hands up over here. Other questions for Angel?
Yes, Hannah.
Hi.
Hi.
I love it. And as a Catholic, Episcopalian Methodist of Jewish descent, I love it. And what I love is that you started with something silly, but also serious, and then went to something really, really scary. And actually, what I see right there is what I think of as an angel. So it feels. I mean, you've taken sort of the scariest depiction of the angel, the most biblical accurate, like pretty freaky, and yet somehow turned it back into something soft and really spiritual, and I think that's really cool.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That's very sweet.
Being named Angel, making an angel, how does it feel to have sculpted your own spirit animal?
Honestly, being a person named Angel that makes stuff that looks trippy and like airbrush, it's kind of embarrassing. It's like the cringiest thing you can do. People are like, oh yeah, I got your number, lady, like right away.
Angel, I have a question.
Yeah.
What is you talked a little bit about your hands and like the
Oh yeah.
touch of your hands that you haven't done on other works before.
Yes.
What is the importance of showing your hand in this?
Okay, so this is actually like, it doesn't seem like a big step, but it's a big step for me, because I feel like the thing that's most, that I struggle with the most as an artist is being embarrassed by my hand, like in my work. Like I want the work to look like something that's not me somehow, like there is a, like when something is not smooth correctly or I notice the flaw, I feel like some sort of like artistic shame around it. And that pushed me into making like the early work that's very like perfect, right? And I kind of painted myself into this corner of perfection that just like tightens me up so much that I'm not as free to express. And then now I think the most important thing for me is like, okay, I'm gonna put my hand directly in this. I'm gonna let this kind of be a little bit more wonky than what I would expect, what I would have allowed myself to do before, because it's like the most compassionate thing I can do for my practice, instead of just being like, ugh, you know, like, I gotta do it perfect, I gotta do it right, I gotta do it, you know. This is my chance to start opening up more, and really being more present in the work. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Also, as a cradle Catholic, there's the Catholic guilt. So it kind of goes back into like wanting things to look perfect.
Oh, yeah.
And in this piece, that's about Catholicism in a way. You're freeing yourself from that guilt.
Yes, exactly.
Layers.
I've confessed with my hands.
Any other questions for Angela?
Oh, yeah.
A little more of a serious.
Yeah.
I currently am experiencing similar like struggles and trying to get into a transition period of that in my work. Like, I feel like I have Catholic guilt, but like the Methodist version.
Okay.
And
Okay.
that has been persistent throughout anything in my life, and definitely into my work as an artist, where I need to make a recognizable form, something that looks anatomically correct. So I do a lot of body work. And with my last piece, I just threw it all to hell and did an abstract like performance piece, and it felt very liberating. I didn't have any part of it where I was like, I hate it, I have to throw it away. And it's interesting to, you know, be spoken to by someone that's also going through that journey. But there is that background guilt of like, or I guess instillment of everything has to be perfect, everything has to be intentional, everything has to be exact. And I don't know, like, I've also been reading works related to the human trace, particularly in political artwork. And I find your inclusion of your literal fingerprint in your work to be a quite effective way of doing that without being very blatant about it. Like, I don't know if that jumble makes sense, but I hope that it
No, it does. You know, like, I think there's something to be said that, like, one of the first artworks of the world was someone putting their hand on the cave and, like, blowing oxide over it. You know? And I think that kind of ties back into, like, it's a sense of presence, it's the mark of the maker, and it's, like, humanity just representing itself in our very ephemeral life that will be gone one day, you know? I think that's part of it, too. Yeah.
Something that, like, I know oftentimes, well, I'm also another sculpture student, and I often, like, when I'm first getting to know a professor, the stuff I make in their class is very much like I'm trying to make it as perfect as possible. I don't want it to be seen because I don't like being perceived. But, like, when I took a second class with you, I was just kind of like, okay, I know that I can be perceived by angels safely. So I really started making that work more me. And a lot of it is, for me, especially showing my hand in my work, is about, like, allowing others to perceive parts of me that I sometimes can't even see. And that's scary.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's very vulnerable, and that's the truth of it. You're really trusting someone else with your most vulnerable self. Yeah.
We're
Thank
gonna
you.
have to wrap up.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
All right.
Angel. Okay, one more. Okay. Thank you so much, Angel.
Yeah, thanks.
Our last presenter today is Lena Tashjian. Did I say that right? You can please correct it for me. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lena Tashjian, and I'm a cookbook author and an embroidery artist. And my project that I'm working on now, it's kind of continuously evolving, but it's connecting both of these passions together and preserving them. So Marash embroidery is a very intricate and complex embroidery technique by the Armenians of Marash, which is a region that was in Western Armenia. And the styles you see here, a lot of them were symbolic. A lot of the designs meant things. A lot of times you would see like birds and flowers, and they would represent, you know, a protection, like the evil eye, things like this. And they were often used in the decor of the home. So you would see them, like curtains would be embroidered, blankets, clothing. It was meant to be seen, touched, used, essentially. And the Marash Armenians in general are known particularly for this technique as well as for their cooking. And after 1915 genocide, most of the Marash Armenians were completely annihilated and wiped out. And many of the surviving Armenians, mostly orphans, were sent to neighboring countries like Syria, and a lot were also sent to the Armenian quarter in Jerusalem, where my grandmother was sent. And they preserve these techniques as well as the recipes from memory alone. And that's why in these communities, these things still exist and people still do the embroidery. And I just wanted to show a quick demo. There's many different types of Marash embroidery and different patterns. This is the last row for a very basic border. And even in this, because I'm going to talk about the secret nature of it, there's a hidden thread right here. If you don't know to look for it, already it would be very hard to find. You have to know to look for that. And this ties into the, there we go. So there is a secretive nature of the needlework, and I also started to see parallels in cooking, which is why I wanted to quote unquote stitch these two concepts together. The first one is that, there we go. Marash embroidery is Marashi asnegda korzutyun in Armenian, but it's also referred to as kagnagar, which literally translates to secret sewing or secret needlework. And it was because the method had to be taught. It was passed down generation to generation. If anyone wanted to learn it who didn't have family, who were Marash Armenians, they had to actually seek it out. It was not something available, written about, etc. And then the more modern way of it becoming secretive is this concept of look, don't touch. So for an example, my grandmother would make a lot of embroidered pillows for us growing up. We were never using them as pillows or for their intended purposes. It was behind like a glass cabinet. If I ever even went into that room, my mom would be like, what are you doing in there? You know, like get out. So we weren't actually using them for their intended purposes. So it kind of got this other secretive nature on top of the original one. And then I started seeing parallels in Armenian cooking. If you ever ask an Armenian person for a recipe or ask them how much rice they put or lentils, you'll often hear this phrase, achki chapov, which means it's measured with your eye. There's no written down recipes, it's passed down through memory. If I ever asked my grandmother, how did you make this mantabur? She'd say, come in the kitchen, watch. And as they did that, they would tell you stories, and it was the same with embroidery. So I felt like it was this way of teaching it intuitively rather than just the technique, and almost like making it more superficial by just teaching the technique or the recipe. I love that approach, but I also think there is a risk of it not being preserved properly, and it makes me so sad when I think of what people did to preserve these things in the first place. So I started to, I'll let you know in a second, I started just by sharing more of the embroidery process on I should be pointing it there, I see. So I started sharing more about the embroidery process in general on social media, and I had a lot of people reaching out to me who just simply regretted not learning it when they had a chance. Their grandparents from Marash had passed away. They never really, when you're a kid, it's like, do you want to learn how to embroider, or do you want to go play outside? It's kind of, a lot of people end up regretting it. So I started showing embroidering clothes, the behind the scenes, and one of the biggest things I had to kind of retrain my brain to do is I would embroider clothes and then put them in my closet, never wear them. I had to start wearing them out, being okay if they got dirty, kind of getting over that, because this felt non-traditional, but it was actually the tradition of Marash. You would want to use these things, have them out and about. So then it kind of developed into bringing together my two passions, which was embroidery and cooking. And I do, as I said, I'm a cookbook author, and I also do recipe development and cooking classes. So instead of going and getting that typical, you have to get those fancy napkins and placemats and pot holders, I started just embroidering them myself and using them in my own cooking and my own videos. And I always do that. And then here it's like, for example, a cooking class, you'll always now see like Marash. This was for a brand. I was making an apricot cake, and I wanted to use my own product in there. And then it kind of kept evolving, maybe getting a little bit out of hand, but here I'm embroidering a tablecloth. And in this one, I actually started embroidering the cakes in themselves. So instead of typical cake decoration, I would choose symbols, and I would actually use stencils and put them. So in this case, it's powdered sugar. I've done cocoa. I've done cinnamon. And then a lot of people assumed what was going to come next. Essentially, it was inspired by one of my favorite quotes. It's from a Western Armenian author from Dikanagert. And next is, I also tried to always show the behind the scenes on social media to make it less intimidating, to make it look fun, not to look like it's such a serious thing that, people have to be worried about learning. So the quote is, when my mother put her apron on and started cooking, it was always more than just cooking. It was resistance. And I think that beautifully ties in this idea of preserving both the embroidery and the recipes, because people painstakingly did that. They preserved these memories and taught it so people like me born in Canada could continue. So I always wanted to, first of all, raise awareness, use it, show it being used. And now I not only do the aprons and the tablecloths, but people actually send me photos of their own grandparents' designs and ask me to embroider them for them. And then I wanted to make one little reason to celebrate. As of 2025, we're actually using the pillows my grandmother embroidered in the home as pillows. So to me, that was a great success. And sorry, one thing I should have mentioned, I did bring one piece from like the ones I use in my cloths. And one of the reasons it's called kapnagat, is secret sewing, is when you look at the back of the design, you're not meant to understand how the pattern was created by the back stitch. So it doesn't give any indication. You'd have to be taught it to understand how the braiding works. I tried to show that video, hopefully it gave a little bit of an idea, but yeah, I should have showed that earlier.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Yes.
So where did the kind of cross pattern in this embroidery come from?
The standard cross stitch, that one came from, I mean, Armenians are the first Christian nation, and a lot of times the bigger crosses as well. There's not one here, but there was one on the cake. It's the apostolic cross from, like you would see it a lot in Jerusalem. So it's their, yeah, it's kind of like the building block of all Marash embroidery.
Oh, wow. How does it feel to use the pillow, actually?
Oh, in the beginning, no one would sit beside it. Now we lie down. It's wonderful. And it just, when you walk in the room and see it, it's just so nice to, like, its intended purpose instead of behind a glass cabinet, you know? I think it was a very good decision.
I know for me, like, using things that my grandmother or my great-grandmother embroidered, it brings them back into the living world, even though they're not here anymore.
I completely agree.
Like, so you have a piece of them right there with you. Something that they spent hours working on.
Exactly. And I always like to think their intention was for us to use it. You know, when she was doing this for us, it was not so we hide it in a room no one's allowed to go in. So it's really, that's why even the clothing, it took a lot of relearning, retraining my brain to be like, I'm going to wear this outside.
Convincing my mom to use the tablecloths that her mother and grandmother embroidered.
Yes, yes.
So are the patterns, are you creating the patterns, or are they traditional patterns that you're using?
Some of them I've seen before, and there's very typical ones, like you'll always have this diamond, the circle, there are those kind of patterns, but I start doing names too, so I'll do them in like italics, I try to do them in different formats, so I kind of try to just think of, I've seen all of them, I've been inspired, and I try to think of different placements or patterns, and then, as I said, a lot of times people are sending me what their grandparents did, and I've never seen them in books. It's a very unique design, so it's really cool to recreate, and all of us who are like, because of social media, I've connected with lots of embroidery artists who do this. It's just amazing to see all these designs we didn't even know about. There's double stitches, they're much harder, but it's very cool to learn about all these things we didn't even know about. Yeah.
What a unique way to use social media.
Yeah.
Something that's like not taught in a book or a lecture, that you can share those actual images.
Exactly.
As a positive thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Any other questions?
How long would it take you to embroider a pillow like that?
Like this one? This one, I would say, honestly, I have to be honest, the hardest part for me and what takes me the longest, even if I use a ruler, it's very hard to do the straight lines. Like I always do it and I realize I'm like slightly slanted. So other than the sketching, the embroidery itself, once I do it, it becomes extremely, like you were talking about it, being very meditative. I could like probably 2.5 hours straight doing it, and you're in a different dimension, you know? But just I don't know, I'm trying to use stencils now to sketch out the patterns. It takes so long for me. Yeah. Sure.
How old were you when you learned? And did you learn from
my grandmother? So my grandmother would do it, and it became very familiar to me, but I realized, just like with the cooking, when you think you know a recipe because you've been around it, you don't actually know how to start. So I actually ended up, about 4 or 5 years ago, I started taking in Armenia classes to do it. And I learned from an embroidery artist, so it was very nice that it was familiar, but the technique itself, I had to actually it was like starting anew, essentially, yeah. And now because of that experience too, the aprons, the materials, I source them all from Armenia. And I go there, I get all my materials, I work with a women's collective to create, like, let's say the aprons. I bring them back, I embroider, and then if I'm selling them, I sell them. If I'm using them, I use them, yeah. Yeah. Connecting Western and Eastern Armenia, I guess.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you to all of our presenters today. This has been such a nice range to learn different techniques and inspiration, and I appreciate you all spending your Saturday afternoon with us. Just one shout out, we have another program for artists next month. We're collaborating with Fresh Arts on a program called Digital Marketing Trends for Creatives, and that'll be December 11th, which is a Thursday evening from 6 to 8 p.m. And actually, Angel will be one of the speakers at that again. So come back and hear Angel speak. It'll be a panel that's exploring digital marketing trends through some use of AI, more traditional marketing, and then a DIY approach from artists such as Angel, who has taught herself and has done amazing with it. So please come back and join us for that on December 11th. Thank you, everyone.